Welcome to your next lesson on your officiant and your ceremony. In this lesson, we'll go over the various types of ceremonies available, the importance of understanding your state's rules when it comes to officiants, how to choose the best officiant for you and your ceremony, the signing of your marriage license, and the ceremony order. So, if you're ready, let's begin. Types of ceremonies. Let's begin by discussing the different types of wedding ceremonies. You have many options to choose from and can choose whichever type suits you and your fiancé best. First, we have your most common type of ceremony, and that's the traditional one. These are typically faith-based and culled from the tradition the bride and groom were born into. Next is a non-religious or civil ceremony, and these usually include no reference to faith and typically do not mention God. Some people call it a civil ceremony, but in fact, a civil ceremony often mentions God. This non-religious ceremony is conducted by a registrar and is usually held in a town or city hall, or any other place that is legally recognized as being able to hold civil ceremonies. There is usually minimal personalization in a civil ceremony, such as writing your own vows or having readings. Next is the humanist ceremony. Humanist ceremonies have hit the headlines recently due to them not being considered legal in Northern Ireland. You can still have a humanist ceremony, but will need to have a civil ceremony before or after it to be considered legally married. Humanism is a belief that we can be good and loving members of society without needing to adhere to any religious codes, but simply following a strong moral code of society. Humanist weddings are becoming more and more popular as the ceremony focuses on the couple and allows for significant personalization. Then we have your intercultural ceremonies. This is a blending of cultures, such as a Filipino veil ceremony with a Chinese red string ritual, and yet can certainly also blend religious aspects. Then there's the interfaith ceremonies. This is a blending of two or more faiths by including aspects of religion or religious rituals or readings that are symbolic of each faith. There's the non-denominational ceremony, and that's a spiritual ceremony that includes reference to God but does not adhere to any particular religious protocol. And finally, same-sex ceremonies. Same-sex couples are entitled to legally register their relationship as a civil partnership. This will give your relationship legal recognition and added legal rights as well as responsibilities. Types of officiants. Now that you're aware of the different types of religious ceremonies that can be performed for you, let's discuss the different types of officiants that can perform the marriage ceremony for you. The first is a priest. In the Catholic religion, this officiant is often referred to as a priest. In a Christian religion that is not Catholic, this officiant is often referred to as a pastor, minister, or reverend. In the Jewish religion, this officiant is often referred to or called the rabbi. In the Hindu religion, this officiant is referred to as the pujari. In the Muslim religion, this officiant is often called the imam. In the Buddhist religion, religious leaders are often referred to as the bhikkhu or Buddhist monk. Because there is no marriage sacrament in this faith, oftentimes the bride and groom will choose an officiant to perform the ceremony and then later will go to temple to have their marriage blessed, often in a separate ceremony. There are, however, some Buddhist monks that may perform a ceremony on the wedding day. And in Hawaii, although there are many forms of religion found there, the officiant is often called a kahu. Because not everyone chooses to use a religious officiant for their marriage ceremony, there are other alternatives and types of officiants that are authorized to perform your ceremony. A celebrant is a legally authorized conductor of weddings. A Unitarian is a minister that creates custom wedding ceremonies for couples of all genders and sexual orientations. A humanist officiant is a type of officiant that is a secular equivalent of a priest. A former Catholic priest, although they may be retired from the church, are legally allowed to perform wedding ceremonies. Interfaith ministers come from many different faith backgrounds and have different philosophies and personal theologies, yet are well versed in a multitude of religious traditions. They share a commitment to serving individuals, couples, and families in a very personal and respectful way, building ceremonies around the wishes, preferences, beliefs, and practices of the clients they serve. Like hospital chaplains, interfaith officiants do not speak on behalf of any one faith tradition, but respect and honor all of them. A judge, retired judge, or justice of the peace is a magistrate appointed to grant marriage licenses and perform marriages in your local city, county, or township. Performing marriages is his or her, in her locality, is one of his or her various tasks. Ordained ministers, and to be ordained means that you're authorized to function in a ministerial capacity. Some men and women feel called to a lifetime of ministry and become ordained to prepare for this lifestyle. Traditionally, ordained ministers enter into areas like pastoring a church, children's ministry, or missionary work. Choosing an officiant. When you're in the process of choosing an officiant to perform your wedding ceremony, there are a few things you'll want to keep in mind to make the process easier. And the first is to know your state's rules prior to looking for an officiant. Make sure that your state and county recognize your officiant as someone who is authorized to perform the ceremony. There are, in fact, some states like Nevada, Connecticut, and Virginia that do not allow online ministers to perform weddings. And here in my own state of New York, some counties within the state will not legally recognize a wedding ceremony performed by an online minister. And the same goes for some counties in Pennsylvania as well. Therefore, it's important that you know what your state's rules are prior to beginning your search. I've seen this myself, and trust me, there's nothing worse than having to look around frantically the day of your wedding because the officiant you chose had to back out because they didn't have the correct credentials to perform your wedding ceremony. You'll also want to know what kind of ceremony you'd like to have. You should know before beginning your search for an officiant the kind of ceremony you'd like. It's very important to communicate with your fiancé and be clear about the type of ceremony you are both looking to have performed. Some couples choose a modern ceremony over a traditional one, while others choose to have a religious ceremony versus a secular one. Before you choose an officiant, you'll want to have decided on the mood and feel of the ceremony, how long you'd like the ceremony to be, the components you'd like added to it, and if you want to read your own vows or not. Nailing these details prior to searching for an officiant will narrow your list of options down greatly and help you choose the one that is right for the both of you in every way. Meet with them. Do they speak clearly? Are they easy to understand? Do they speak your language? If you're planning a religious ceremony, talk to the house of worship or potential officiant before booking to find out if there are any restrictions you should know about. Some may require premarital counseling or inclusion of certain rituals, or may not allow you to write your own vows. Choosing the right officiant. I truly believe there are a few important things you want to know and understand about the officiant prior to selecting them, like liking the way they speak or the sound of their voice. Are they easy to understand? And do you believe they will have your guest resonating with your vows? You'll also want to make sure you're comfortable with them. Will they make you feel so at ease on your wedding day that you won't be nervous and fumbling on your words? Are they a caring person and willing to get to know you as a couple so you both feel confident and at ease during the ceremony? You'll also want to know what their style and the services they offer if they meet your needs. Like, are they willing to compromise on some of the readings, scripts, or rituals? If you are not looking to have a religious ceremony, the last thing you're going to want is an officiant standing before you, preaching to you and your guests. Keep in mind, however, that if you're choosing a religious ceremony, that the officiant is representing a specific faith and may not be able to deviate from the traditional ceremony, and you'll have to respect that. You cannot expect a rabbi to include a Catholic prayer in your ceremony and vice versa. So be clear that you understand the officiant's rules and what they can and cannot do for you. If you do not have somebody in mind, ask around to your family and friends. Chances are they may be able to recommend someone to you. If not, you can always ask your wedding planner, your vendors, or even your venue. Or you can use a service like Thumbtack, Wedding Wire, or The Knot to find one, and often with reviews. And you might want to just ask for a testimonial or reference so you can speak directly with someone who can give you insight into their style, personality, and vibe. Okay, now I'm going to say this over and over. Most importantly, if you take nothing else away from this lesson, I need you to understand that you need to make sure that your officiant can legally sign your marriage license. And you might think it seems a little over the top, but I bet you didn't know that here in New York City, an officiant must be registered with the city's clerk's office for 24 hours prior to signing your marriage license. And this is even if they are a justice of the peace from another town or county. Do not assume that the officiant can make it legal. Make sure you ask them if they are aware of the rules of your town and if they are legally allowed to sign your marriage license and make your ceremony a legal one. Just because they can perform the ceremony does not mean that they can legally marry the two of you. Save yourself a headache and ask this question of every officiant you inquire about. And please, just don't think this is crazy, but you may even want to ask a few officiants if you could, quote unquote, sit in on a ceremony that they're performing so you get a first-hand feel of their style and their vibe. The order of the ceremony. So let us now take a few minutes to go over what a traditional wedding ceremony looks like and what exactly the officiant does. The processional. This is the part of the ceremony where you walk down the aisle to meet your officiant and soon-to-be spouse. Then the officiant will make their opening remarks and make an introduction of the wedding ceremony that sets the tone for the wedding. It's a greeting to your guests, a statement about the occasion and its importance, and the significance of the couple getting married. Then the officiant will address or charge the couple, and what this means is they'll say a few words about what marriage is or means and set the couple up for their declarations of intent. There would be some readings if you choose. And then you and your fiance would exchange your vows, followed by the exchanging of rings. And the officiant would summarize that you've both agreed to the marriage, declared your intent, and would then make the pronunciation to your witnesses that the marriage was now legally binding. And then there's the kiss. This tradition can be traced back to the Roman times where the kiss sealed your contract, or as those in the Christian faith like to describe it, two souls becoming one. The officiant would then make a closing remark like where the couple would like their guests to join them for the reception, perhaps include the location and time, or if there will be a receiving line, or where the bridal party should meet for pictures to be taken. And then the bride and groom would make their way back down the aisle, followed by the wedding party and guests, to go celebrate the newlyweds at the reception. So now that we know all about officiants, what they do, and what to look for when choosing one, let's discuss the cost of an officiant. A donation is typically made when your wedding is being officiated by a religious figure, whether your wedding is being held in a house of worship or elsewhere. In this case, a set fee is not required, but a suggested donation should be made to the officiant's affiliated house of worship. If you're getting married in a house of worship, the cost of a wedding officiant might be included in the venue fee. And if that's not the case, You will likely be expected to give a donation anywhere from $100 and up, and this may depend on if you're a member or not. If you're unsure, don't be afraid to ask the house of worship with which your officiant is affiliated if they have a suggested amount. What's included in that officiant fee is the prep work. Your officiant will meet with you before your wedding to create a ceremony plan that's unique and meaningful to you. Creating a ceremony plan takes at least 3 to 4 hours, not including edits and communication with you. If you're writing your own wedding vows, which 36% of couples do, your officiant can assist you with those as well. It includes their travel and event time. You're paying for your officiant's time and presence at your wedding. So if your officiant is traveling a long distance to your event, you may incur additional travel charges. License handling, your officiant is responsible for making sure your license is properly filled out, signed, and sent back within the required time frame. It also may include your rehearsal time if your officiant may or may not attend your rehearsal, but if he or she does, there's likely an extra charge. As well as equipment. Some officiants provide their own wireless microphones and speakers, which cost them money to buy and maintain. So you can expect to pay around $300 for an officiant, and that's if you're not getting married in your county clerk's office. Religious officiants don't usually accept tips. Instead, it's customary to make a donation of $100 to $300 or more for his or her house of worship, and then a token of your appreciation is always nice, say in the form of a gift card or a small gift. If you're having a civil officiant, he or she should receive an additional $50 to $100 for excellent service. And keep in mind that the average cost of a wedding officiant is going to cost you approximately $300. Now, let's go over some tips to keep in mind when booking your officiant. First, you'll want to make sure you ask the right questions. And I've included a question sheet for you in the download section of this lesson to help you ask the right questions. You'll also want to know if the fee for the officiant is included in the venue fee or if it's separate. And most importantly, know your state's rules when it comes to the different types of officiants and whether or not they can marry you legally or not. So, that's it for this lesson. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.